Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced at North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
Today we start a 2-week series on the arts. It's one of our favorite topics, and for our longtime viewers, you know that we have a variety of subjects on this program, and so that's going to be the issue for the next 2 weeks. I welcome to the program two guests who are so qualified to deal with this very fascinating subject. First of all, I welcome Janet Torline. She is a gallery assistant at the gallery we're going to be talking about, which is the Art Spirit in Coeur d'Alene. She took art in college, and she's been very active with the Citizens Council for the Arts in the schools within North Idaho. Janet, welcome to the program. We're pleased to have you here.
Thank you.
And we're equally pleased to have Steve Gibbs, who is the owner of the Art Spirit, which has just done really well in Coeur d'Alene. And our second guest, Steve Gibbs, has a degree in art from Montana State University. And Steve, welcome to the program. We're very pleased to have both of you here.
Thank you, Tony.
And as always, I'm very pleased to have regular panelist, Erna Reinhardt, and she is the Director of Public Relations at North Idaho College, and she will start today's questioning.
Welcome to the show, both of you, Janet and Steve. It's great to have you here. I want to start a little bit talking about the arts in the Coeur d'Alene community in general, and both of you have pretty extensive backgrounds of being involved in the art movement here in our community. And I want to ask you specifically, and I'll start with Janet, I know that you have worked in the school system with the arts program there. Tell us a little bit about that in general.
Well, through Citizens Council for the Arts, we initiated a program called Art in the Schools, and we recognized that there were a lot of artists in the area that were seeking work situations outside of their own studio work, and were interested in working with kids throughout the county. We offered the program to all the schools in Kootenai County. And so my job was to coordinate those artists and list what medias and areas they were willing to teach and what grade levels, et cetera, and get that information out to the schools. And Citizens Council for the Arts funded that program with a matching funds from the school. So this was incentive for the schools to put money into the arts in their individual schools. And the program went successfully for 13 years, and Citizens Council for the Arts felt that it had a life, had a good life, and had been successful, but the number of schools in the counties had grown and it was becoming somewhat diluted. And they wanted a more face-forward presentation for the monies that they put into the arts for the community. So that program has been folded into the Harding Play space now, with Harold Blaze as the master artist on that, working with 5 or 6 of the artists from the Art in the Schools program that apprentice with him, and then will take these skills into the schools. So it's ongoing, but in a little different form.
And your work in the arts has now made a different transition also. You used to work with young people in schools, and now you're doing something different. Tell us about that.
Well, Steve and I met a few years ago when we were both asked to be on a group of artists or art representatives to select art for Coeur d'Alene Public Arts through the Coeur d'Alene Arts Commission. And it was through our mutual interest in the arts and desire to see that grow in the community that Steve asked me to come and help him at the gallery. And his business had been incubating for a while and had grown to the point where it was a little bit more than he had time to do, even though he does it 24/7. So I was fortunate enough to be asked to do that, and so I said that'd be great, because it's just a beautiful environment and it's just so fun to meet all these wonderful artists that are in our area. And then the people that come into the gallery are interesting, and they're open-minded, and they're inspired by what they see. And the great thing about art is it's non-political and non-denominational and non-generational. It's all inclusive, and there's something for everybody, and it really provokes a lot of passion and enthusiasm in people, and that's just fun to be around.
Great. Okay, Steve, we're going to go to you. Tell us how you got into the gallery business, and a little bit about the history about your gallery.
Okay. I first got into the gallery kind of by accident. I was a graphic designer, art director for 15 years full-time. then I chose not to follow the computer, and it was time to go in and develop my fine art. I started drawing and painting with John Tham, a local artist, and he had a space over on Sherman that was empty at the time that they were renting out, and so I'd hire models and the two of us would paint in there. Then it came up that they wanted to move back into that space and move upstairs, and offered the main floor as a gallery space, and thought about it and thought it would be a good way to meet a lot more of the local artists around here and to find out more about that aspect of fine art. And that was 7 years ago, and it has grown to the point of where there's such a need with all the local great talent that lives around here, and not enough galleries to show them all. And so we've been going on a roll ever since.
Excellent, thanks.
The Art Spirit is the gallery we're talking about, but I wanted just to introduce something that you may or may not be familiar with. I seem to be a missionary for this book. Dr. Richard Florida from Mellon University in Pittsburgh has written a great book called The Creative Class. You probably know about it. I see Janet saying yes. The Carnegie Mellon University, and in that he's chosen the cities that he thinks are the great progressive cities of the 21st century, including Boston and Seattle and San Francisco and Austin, Texas, and Gainesville, Florida, among others. And he has an index, and there's for our viewers who aren't familiar with this, he talks about why those cities are great and why they're going to be leading us in the future. And one of those components, there are several, but one of them is that you have to appreciate and celebrate the arts and humanities. So based on that long introduction, Steve, would you share with our viewers, you have a wonderful statement there with you, about why the arts are so important to quality life?
Okay. This is actually a quote out of the beginning of a book called The Art Spirit, which I named the gallery after. And it is basically a compilation of notes from lectures and writings by Robert Henry from the early part of this century. It was written in the late 20s, and it's been in continuous publication ever since. You can still go up to your local bookstore and buy it, and it's a great book. So I'll go ahead and read from that. It says, "Art, when really understood, is the province of every human being. It is simply a question of doing things, anything well. It is not an outside extra thing. When the artist is alive in any person, whatever his kind of work may be, he becomes an inventive, searching, daring, self-expressing creature. He becomes interesting to other people. He disturbs, upsets, enlightens, and he opens ways for a better understanding. Where those who are not artists are trying to close the book, he opens it and shows there are still more pages possible. The world would stagnate without him, and the world would be beautiful with him, for he is interesting to himself and he is interesting to others. He does not have to be a painter or sculptor to be an artist. He can work in any medium. He simply has to find the gain in the work itself, not outside of it. Museums of art will not make a country an art country, but when there is the art spirit, there will be precious works to fill museums. Better still, there will be the happiness that is in the making. Art tends towards balance, order, judgment of relative values, the laws of growth, the economy of living, very good things for anyone to be interested in."
I want you to read that because I think it's incredibly powerful language, and if one needs any justification for putting resources into art, that certainly indicates that. Another question, then we're going to show some photographs from your art gallery. In international public policy, and in particular civil rights, the common language has always been music. And certainly Dr. King proved that with the civil rights movement, that music was always part of the parades or marches and rallies. And so is art similar to that? There are certain things that bridge all cultures and all interests. How would you respond to that?
I think it definitely can bridge all cultures. It's especially throughout history, it's been a very, I guess, inclusive area for all different cultures, and we recognize previous cultures by their art, and I think it does create bridges to which people can share ideas.
We certainly see that, don't we? And we go back in history. One of the things that we do identify with centuries ago was the artwork they had. On that note, I'm going to ask our staff to bring up the first photograph. We're going to show 6 photographs of the Art Spirit, which is on Sherman Avenue, the main street in Coeur d'Alene. And if they'll bring the first one up now, I will invite both of you to talk about this. This is the opening to go into the art gallery.
Yeah, we're down at 415 Sherman is our address down here. We moved into this space a year ago. It's a building that we remodeled and kind of took it back to its original beauty. It was a great building that had been covered up over the years, but it makes for a very nice venue for us to show the art. That
You brought it back alive with that, how you did that. We'll go to the second photograph.
There's our logo and our sign. That's part of my former profession where I was a graphic designer, so I did get to do my logo and my graphic design work.
And what's so attractive about that is that, we have a lot of these really large signs. It isn't. It's just very, very comfortable and attractive. And here's the third one.
This is a view from when you walk in the front door. The overall space offers us so much more than our previous space as far as really being able to show off the artwork. We can keep small, intimate spaces up above, or the large, tall ceilings for our bigger places. It allows a good amount of air around each one, and we can create a pretty good balance within there.
That's a great one. Now we'll take the next one.
Janet, you're welcome to.
This is looking down the full length of the gallery from the front to the back end. And those beautiful big windows that are in the back were completely covered up with, I think, 3 layers of walls, as were there 3 ceilings that had to get torn down. And the renovation project itself was a real community effort. We had artists and clients both coming in to help with ripping and tearing and painting and sheetrocking and everything you can imagine.
Very much a community effort.
Very much a community effort, which was really exciting. So a lot of the artists really demonstrated their ownership and their commitment to making the gallery a success, even in terms of just the basic grunt work that had to get done.
The next photograph shows a real open space and windows and a lot of light.
That's a view from the mezzanine. Actually, there was a floor over that area that we pulled out of the second floor, and it opened the whole space up a lot.
Yeah, it's like Jan said, it's so comfortable. It's a great place to work, I'm sure. And this is the last photograph coming up.
This is our smaller, more intimate space upstairs, which is like a half, as you saw. The previous photograph was from there looking down. And this is more intimate and allows us to display the smaller works and a variety. And it's also a great view to look down on the work that's hung on the lower level.
Well, certainly we thank you for allowing us to have those photographs, and it also reminds us in an art gallery that lighting is so crucial, that process. And I see you really have a tremendous amount of that focused on all your artwork. And with that, we'll go back to Erna Reinhardt.
I've been in your gallery, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's a wonderful asset to our community, so I just want to applaud you for that. Steve, tell the viewers how you go about selecting a show, and what all is involved in putting together a show, but how do you select whose work you're going to display?
Okay. First off, all the artists we show are from around the region. A lot of that is just in helping to build the community around the arts here. When we have our receptions at the beginning of a show, we want all the artists to be able to show up and meet the people, and that really is a major part of it. So the artists live around here. Most of them have been producing art, not as a hobby, but as a full-time passion for a number of years. Most of our artists are very exploratory and creative. They're pushing the edges. They're not just painting for the marketplace, they're painting for themselves. And we go for all mediums. We've got great sculpture, paintings, glass, ceramic, a very wide variety there. And then when we go to shows, we've got approximately 30 artists that we show on a continuing basis. So each month, April through December, 10 times a year, we'll strip the walls and put up a new show with a featured artist or a featured theme show. And from those 30 artists, most of them will get a show about every other year. So we keep that going, and then we'll pull in a clay show each August where we bring in 15 clay artists from a little bigger circle so we don't have too much overlap from the past. And then in December we do a small work show, which is works generally 12 inches or smaller, where we bring in 25 or 30 artists who, half of whom are going to be from our group of 30. And then we'll bring in another half that are people from around the region that we don't have time to show all the time. But other than that, it's fairly open. We could fill 4 galleries with the number of artists that come in all the time. And so it's difficult to have to turn artists away that have very quality work, but we just don't have room to show everybody.
Wow, and you guys are open year-round, right?
We are open year-round,
Excellent.
Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 6, and Friday nights till 9. So.
And is an artist typically involved in how the artwork or their work is displayed? I know that here on the campus of North Idaho College we have a small gallery, and it's always a lot larger undertaking in getting that work hung than you would think. I know it takes a lot of time. So how is that handled?
That is a huge.
That takes a week. That takes a full week to do. When a show finishes on a Saturday evening at 6 o'clock, the doors get locked, the music gets turned up, and we just go to work full, hard. And it means stripping everything off the walls and patching and painting. And then Steve, takes the new pieces that are coming in, all of which have to be inputted into our database and wall tags created for them and the pricing accurate and all that sort of thing. And then he has to do all the placing and the hanging, and really that's his expertise and his creative outlet, as well as his headache once a month. And then then there's the pedestal pieces to place. It's a huge physical task to undertake once a month. And then at about 4:45 on Friday, before the reception that starts at 5, we're tearing our hair out, and by 5 o'clock we look calm, cool, and collected, I hope. So it's a huge undertaking. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize. Prior to that, we do a mailing of 3,000, which involves stamping and labeling and getting out and press releases and all that sort of thing. So it's a lot of coordination.
And typically, is an artist involved in that process?
No, they're not. Their focus is to produce the work and have it there on time, and their inventory sheets ready and clear, which a lot of them are better at their artwork than their inventory sheets. So there's that to consider. There's always some, going over, now what does this say here? It's sort of a thing. But that all gets squared away. And then really when they come on Friday for the reception, it's usually the first time that they've seen their work hung. And it's always just stunning and startling. And it changes so dramatically from month to month.
I made my little comment and laughed because one of the great wonderful things about artists is that to be so good that they're focused, and it's their creativity. But this mundane thing of keeping certain records and all that would not be nearly as. How could they be so creative if they were interested in that?
Bothered by that.
Exactly. I was so intrigued, Janet, by your comment too, that not being in that field myself, although we all have our own way of appreciating the art, you just sparked some interest. And I thought, showing my ignorance, that of course you'd take the works down and you'd put other works up and you might reshift the lights and those kind of things. But when you start talking about things like painting, so or maybe Steve would come in on this too, that so color getting the right color in the background all is part of the process.
We stay with the same color. We choose colors at the beginning that then we can work with. It's a good neutral background that all different types of work will be on. But each month when we pull down work and pull out all the hangers, we patch it all and then we spot paint. We don't paint the whole wall, but we spot paint enough with the same color to go ahead and hide.
And there actually was one show where it was a husband and wife team that we represent. They felt that their work was better on a very deep red background. So this is in our other gallery, the Little House. We actually painted the walls deep red for their show.
But that's unusual.
That's unusual. I don't think we'll do that again.
Right. My next question is dealing with, we want to be appreciative of this such a great gallery, but we want to celebrate all the galleries, and our show goes into 7 states and into much of Western Canada, British Columbia, Alberta, and even north of there. Do you, from time to time, I know you don't have much time to visit other galleries, because I know, Steve, in talking with you, that I don't know how you keep going at that pace in your own gallery, but do you by phone or message or through the different artists, do you share ideas with other art galleries? And is there any kind of, we have the Art on the Green here, where there's like 50,000 people come every summer, and you meet a lot of the artists, but how about coordination?
We share a lot of ideas. First, starting locally, we've formed an arts and culture committee within the chamber, and currently we're working at putting together gallery walks with the other galleries within town. They'll start in April and go each month the second Friday through December. We've got 10 other strong galleries in town that are going to be part of a major brochure we're putting together right now. There are new galleries opening up with Steve Shortridge's Painter's Chair Gallery, and Spencer Erlandson's opening his glass shop, and numerous other ones that are in town. So we've got a lot of strength right here, and we share ideas there. And then we work a lot with, in Spokane, Karen Mobley is the city arts director, and she runs a Chase Gallery, which is wonderful, and Lorinda Knight has an excellent contemporary gallery over there, and Jim Colva's very involved in the clay arts. And we share ideas with Jeff Sutton out of Missoula, the Sutton West Gallery, and the Archie Bray Foundation in Helena has great clay arts, and Chris Kreisler up in Sandpoint. There's just a real community within the galleries when we get time to explore it and share.
Janet mentioned that at one of the schools here, a former school, it's Head Start and Community Center. Harold Blaze, our dear friend Harold Blaze, helped with that, and it's a great addition to the community. But Harold Blaze from Spokane is a major regional, even beyond a region, artist, and so people like that come and help in the community. So we've done shows with Harold, and he's just a remarkable person. So that's another addendum to the things that you've been talking about. We'll go back to Erna Reinhardt.
I want to talk a little bit about trends in art, because I know that I think there's been different art forms throughout time that have been very popular and have emerged. And coming from Seattle, I know Seattle has a very, very, very vibrant glass community with the Chihuly works and those kinds of things. But do both of you see any new emerging trends in artwork in terms of how artists are doing things differently or introducing new kinds of arts? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I see a tremendous amount of creativity in the artists that we represent, and as Steve said, we probably have an average of 4 to 6 artists a week come in and want us to view their portfolio, and there's just some wonderful things being done out there. Michael Horswell, who teaches here at North Idaho College, just does some beautiful constructions that I've never seen anything like before. And Robert Grimes over in Spokane is doing carved wooden pieces that are then painted as a relief sculpture, and he also does fiberglass relief paintings that nobody else is. I've never even seen anything in any other galleries I've visited in other cities doing things like this. So I don't know if these people are just pulling this out of a vacuum or what, but the level of creativity and innovation is just inspiring.
So I was going to say, I mean, they are such a creative group of people that they're always figuring out new ways to do things with new materials and coming up with new pieces. Steve,
and we represented a artist last summer who came in with the clay show, a young woman who's really emerging on the national scene, Beth Kavner Stitchner, and she's at the Archie Bray Foundation right now, and she'll be one of 2 of our featured artists for April. And she's just doing some very out there conceptual art. We had 3 goat bodies hanging on the wall this summer, and the nose and handprints up against the glass every morning from people looking in going, what is that? But they're beautifully sculpted. They're incredibly sculpted. She's really talented. So there's a lot of things that just are eye-popping that get people who have never even thought about art in their own life through the door, just to come in and see what's going on in there.
Yeah, I don't see any real trends necessarily in our particular art environment other than just creativity, letting people take off and follow what they want to do. They're not locking themselves into things they've seen in the past or building upon that tradition necessarily. They're exploring in their own line of things. Although I will say they also do a lot of research in history, and most of the artists that are up there at a good, strong level have a pretty strong art history basis of knowledge and things that they build upon.
We're just almost out of time, but that's going to lead up to that question is the artists that you know and that you show their works. Some of them have had a lot more what we might call professional training and academic training or art schools. Others are just, it's more of a natural, Janet, they do not all have the same background.
No, they don't all have the same background. Some are, come with art degrees and have pursued it as a career, either through teaching and then their own studio work as well. And Mel McCudden drove a milk truck for 30 years and painted on the side, and now he's painting, 70 years old, and he's painting harder and better than he's painted in his whole life. So,
on that note, I can bring the program to conclusion, and I would say to our viewers that the time we're taping this program is prior to April, but when it airs, that show will already be gone from your gallery, but you have other shows coming up that will be great. And the good news is that we'll have these 2 guests back next week, and in that program we want to show a number of pieces of art from the gallery from different artists, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy that. For you who have the great love for the art, that was something we're saving special for you next week, and it's our way also of inviting you back. We always love to have you come back each week to our program. So we'll do part 2 next week of art from the Art Spirit in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll be with us at that time when we will show you some wonderful work with these 2 same guests back. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running in-house college production on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station.